usually they give you a vote, they give you extra points though. I don't know. All right,
There's no camera today. I didn't see anybody in the waiting room, but we are being recorded.
I haven't heard from anybody else about coming or not coming, so I have no idea. So we don't have a quorum here of official.
I saw Shelley's Friday night, she said she was.
Okay, so she's probably just running a little late, but why don't we go ahead and open the meeting at 9:02? Any adjustments to the agenda, Joe?
Nope.
Conflict of interest. The minutes. So in here, so we have the minutes from the June 28th meeting. Oh, I guess we can't approve this, yeah. So we'll skip that for now. No public to speak. So we got an email, and I believe everybody was copied on it, from somebody who was, Mr. Chapman, I believe his name was, but it, who was just talking about broadband and thinking it was a great idea if it was a municipality-owned type endeavor, and that he had been through some of this work. And mostly he was saying just to make sure that they got full coverage. We got full coverage for everybody, which our proposal does have, and a little bit more ownership. So I did give him a call, however, I did not get a hold of him, and I was going to go through a whole lengthy response on what our proposal was, but I thought I'd just wait a second and get your guys' feedback, or just say thank you for the input. You know, it doesn't, I don't know if we need to tell him. We did put out a press release, which is coming up soon, but so he'll probably see that. So any ideas on that? Think I should reply and tell him what our proposal is, or just say thank you?
I think both. If it were me, I said, thank you very much for the input. And then here's the press release that we just put out, something like that.
Just good work on that, by the way.
Up to speed.
Press release. That's good.
That's my thought.
You have no thought, okay.
I think we should at least reply.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I will do that today. The broadband update, right now where we're at is we have the committee wrote a press release. It got reviewed a bunch of times. We tried to shorten it, but it's still a lengthy press release. But I think it gives a general idea of, as a first run, you know, as to where we're at right now. The plan is to do another press release probably within a month. And I would think it would be on the 17th, we should hear officially about the Connect Maine. I know we heard that we're in the Connect Maine grant, but I don't know what has been submitted. We'll know what's being submitted. I think it was either the 14th or the 17th of
I think the 16th is the
16th, okay, somewhere in there. So after that, we'll just double check and make sure that we are included. And then I think it would be fair for us to go ahead and do a quick press release that we're part of the grant process that's now going to NTIA. So everything's moving forward there.
That's good.
The broadband update that's a little nerve-wracking is we still have a little bit of uncertainty on Rangeley Plantation. And what we had agreed on was that, of course, we all wanted to go for the grant. But we also didn't want to lose any ground in case we did not get the grant. So we wanted to do the background work of the interlocal agreement so that we all had our inputs together, potentially go to a lawyer, and the lawyer quote was around $1,700 divided by 4. It's not that much, no more than $500 per community. So that if we did not get the grant, we could immediately start the process to get our stuff together, because we need 30 days, you know, we need timing after that to go to the special meetings and get everything approved and do all that stuff. So we don't want to lose too much ground, and we will definitely lose about 2 months just to go through their process. We just didn't want to lose 5 or 10 months and have everything slowed down. The only question we have with Rangeley Plantation is they have mentioned some concerns about doing any of that work prior to finding out about the grant. And we need to just confirm with them that they do want to be included if we do have to go to the interlocal agreement, or if we were asked CCI to propose without Rangeley Plantation. So I think it's simple, it's just a clarification and we just need to make sure, but that's sometimes. Hey, Laura.
Hi, sorry.
Well, there she is.
So it's audio on our part. Have you heard much?
No, I just got in. I just got in.
Okay, so we're just going through the broadband right now.
Okay.
And we review, people have seen the press release, talked about that. And I was just mentioning that we still have to do some clarification with Rangeley Plantation on the interlocal side.
Okay.
I did talk to Laura earlier last week about giving Scott a call. Laura's been, 24/7 here with summer hell. So I offered to try to get a hold of Scott and just see if we can get some more information from Scott Milbury, who's one of the assessors at Rangeley Plantation.
So Kate, if I could, I reached out to Liz last week from Rangeley
Oh, okay.
Plantation regarding possibly holding the quarterly meeting in Rangeley Plantation in September. And her response was that she didn't feel like they had enough room to do that and have, a reasonable distance between each other. So that's where I left. It was late in the week and I didn't respond. I've broken the ice on that conversation.
Okay.
with Liz. And one other point, the press release has been released. It's been published already in the Daily Bulldog. And I sent it to Sun Journal, Mountain Messenger, and what's the other one? The Irregular. So it's been sent out.
Highlander?
Great.
The Highlander, that's the one I missed.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the one I missed.
So we are gonna start up another delegate meeting, but we're gonna wait till September timeframe and let August go through. And we're basically gonna ask everybody to put in their top, 3 to 5 requests on what they wanna see in the interlocal agreement. So we can get the groundwork, some of that information out there and at least start the process, just in case we don't get the grant.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Or just, it's a thought.
Yeah.
Really push at the quarterly meeting to get all of Rangeley Plantation's assessors there. I
Yes,
think you'll find at that meeting where they're
That's
all
good.
at, because you have 2 assessors who haven't really given their input.
right.
And then at that point, if they're a go, be on ground running within a local agreement, just in case.
Yeah, good point.
Push to get them
Yeah.
to the quarterly meeting.
What do you think about using the school as the location for that meeting?
That's fine.
It's
Yeah.
fine.
Okay.
Data spacing was still an issue.
Any other updates on broadband? Okay. So Keith just joined us, yay. Just in time for banners.
Nothing's gonna start right there. So banners, hopefully as many of you have seen, we've got a majority of the banners up for this season. We are lacking some hardware right now, so I'm ordering some additional brackets, poles, and straps and stuff. We all have all except one in Rangeley hung up, and there's 6 or 8 that still remain in the Quasic that can go up. So my next step obviously is to communicate with CMP to let them know about new co-locations that I have on banners and my intentions for future banners. And then obviously as a group, we need to move forward on the next season. So ideally, I know Joe has been in communication with Mr. Langsdorff for paperwork with release forms. If we go the route of, I'll say local artists or photographers. I personally would rather go that route with the aesthetics of those banners over the traditional printed ones. But again, it's a group decision, so I can't wait to look at what we forward with for the next round.
So what does the attorney say on that?
He hasn't got back to me, I emailed him, I haven't got the answer to that question yet.
So-
Do you have any thoughts on?
No, well, my thought is they should be ordered and done by September.
So the turnaround is pretty quick, I would say that. Once
Okay.
Once I have a print, it's probably 2 weeks max for me to get approved. Approved comes back, and then another 2 to 3 weeks they're ordered. So I mean, it really, I'm serious, one can't get them at least by mid-September. At this, if we say we get, I mean, obviously that's depending how we approval, or I guess release form work, and then we come to a group selection. So I would, the
Right,
faster we are, they should happen relatively quick.
but today is the 9th.
Right.
Right.
We'd be pushing it by September, but I think,
Mhm.
no question. I say no question. If we can get something in the next few weeks between with Langsworth and ourselves, come to a group, a decision on some images, and we move forward.
How would we solicit those images? Are you thinking about putting out a Facebook request for
Yeah,
people to send it to us?
That works. I mean, you can do what do you call something poll? There's
Straw poll.
yeah, there's.
Oh, yeah, once we have the images, then we would do the poll, so
Yeah.
there's some timing involved in that.
So I just need images, whether it's from mobiles, whether we, for instance, not you like this one, how Haley's images are relatively easy to access online. So I mean, if you come through those and find better ones that you like, at least not necessarily it would be a holiday scenario, but fall image, just for for a thought in my mind. Again, or if you find just a generic internet photo that you like, we can do.
so I think we should call you, meaning me, Kyle, maybe Nick Ledley,
Absolutely.
maybe
Whether it's Sonia,
Pam, Sonia, whoever, a handful, and say, we don't have the release forms. I mean, I don't want to exclude anybody, but
Correct.
we have a little bit of a time issue here going if we want to get things moving.
Correct.
And by the time, Facebook is great, but they're not going to reply in a day and have 800, you're going to have to give them a couple of weeks of, please submit your approvals and photos or whatever. So I would preempt it by calling those guys, some of the main ones ahead of time.
we can look at that for sure.
And then in the winter one, we'll have more. And maybe we should ask for both at the same time, since we don't have to,
You could,
right?
gives more time to actually review those images.
Yeah.
For the next round. Okay.
That would be one of my suggestions.
I can contact those individuals, so some of those.
Does anybody have a feeling of maybe intermixing the local with some generic, like some of the ones we had already picked out? Or should we just all go local?
I think we could mix, one thing I think we could do is have just a generic, but a town of Rangeley with maybe the town seal on it, that's really wouldn't be specific to a season. So if we had a half dozen of those kind of interspersed, those could kind of be up.
And the beauty of any image, I mean, I will say, to capitalize on that, what you can do, obviously, we take a picture of the giving tree, we can always add graphics to it. Because they'll mock up, if you have an idea, they can mock up anything you want.
Yes.
Yeah,
So maybe we could write happy holidays, this, account, intermix any of those. So I mean, again, I don't have a preference really, I'm just trying to think of.
the other thing is with some of the generic or things like that, where it's not I don't know. I mean, I think if we're doing local artists, we have to offer it for a few seasons, right, to get a grouping of them. Because we don't want to have to keep buying them every year, right? So,
I mean, there's a point definitely where we want to, I think aside from special occasions or we'll say town events, or we just have to put on a sponsor something, then you can look at ordering or working a deal out with a vendor or distributors or something, or part of that group for an event, that you can look at starting to, I don't want to say sponsored banners, but event specific. You can go that route and have a different rate probably, but right now, I think you're right. You're trying to get something that's
And the other thing is, so they look, I thought they were gonna be bigger, but when they're hung up, they look smaller.
So I don't
They're
disagree.
small, you know, I've driven right past them, didn't even notice them.
Yeah.
So part of the difficult part now is they do make them bigger. But what we will run into, as I noticed already, the poles aren't consistent with the gear. So there are a few that I have to move somehow, probably working with Consolidated, but enough to be able to actually get jump, they can, as I say, hang off, but they could definitely smack with it. I'm worried less about the equipment hitting them than I am people messing with them. So we haven't got as much room on the pole height-wise for these banners. Most of the poles we have currently on Main Street specifically.
What size did you eventually order? Because one of those meetings you and I met, we had gone
What is that?
fairly.
Yeah,
I'll tell you right now. We gotta take that, sorry. Excuse me.
16.
no, they looked great and big, but then when they were up, I'm like, oh, they don't look as big when they're up. But he's basically saying he's got them up at the height, so they're a little higher up maybe too.
My goal is like 10 feet to the bottom. These are 2 foot by, give or take, 2 by 4. 2 by 4. Those are bigger than the original ones we discussed, but.
Okay, so then the only other thing, just, I don't wanna be I love them, by the way. Is I noticed them more now that you've got more up. Like when you just had a couple go, when you started, it was like one on each side. And you definitely notice the public parking ones, which is great. But then I'm thinking in the winter, you're never gonna see those in the winter unless we put lights on them. So we gotta figure that out, and would even a string of lights be able to show the image, like a string of Christmas lights or something like that, or how do we?
So they have lights that attach to the upper pole that have a downspout on them.
Oh, okay.
I would do solar lights.
In the winter up here?
Can we
I have
do that with
solar lights
the
in my
lighting
house.
ordinance?
Okay.
It would have to be, I'll look at it again. It might be set up on low light, in my opinion, it's no different than a Christmas decoration. You have a light on the banner itself.
Yeah.
So, but I'll review that. To be,
So it's almost like we have enough going on here with this, that we should just not have a full meeting, but maybe a banner meeting in a couple of weeks.
That's fair.
I'll be willing to do it. I don't know, Don, are you willing to do this again?
Oh, no, I spent many, many hours on this, and then I come back and they're all changed and totally different, so. Doesn't the chamber have winter pictures that they've already?
They probably do.
got releases?
They probably do.
Or we need our own release though, right?
Yeah.
That's just.
Anyways, Keith will
Back to
just work out you and, okay.
Alright.
Laura, any input on banners?
No, well, the only comment that I got from several people was that the script writing at the bottom, it's actually hard to read Aquasic.
Oh.
That's the only feedback that I got. So I don't know if we can change the font on the bottom.
And for future banners, we could.
Yeah, that was the only feedback I got. There were people who were like, well, Aquasic's hard enough to know what it is, to then have it in script, you can't read it. I think it's fine, but
I did get I had a couple people email me saying they loved them, so that was good.
I think they're great.
Yeah.
I do, I really think they look nice, and I think you do a good job. I love it.
Yeah.
Like anything, we take the input, the feedback, we refine the program as we move forward. So,
All right, now your next wonderful story is our wayfinding signs.
All right, so the 7 in-town signs, the frames were built, stamped, stamped up all the hardware and size, Sam and Larry. Everything's dig safe, it's a matter of getting the drill right here, which should be right off to get those in the ground so it's a shoot. 67 up, right? Versus yeah, I have to build a 4 outskirt ones, like small falls areas, so.
Yeah.
Right, so a couple issues, but not issues with the sign, just time-wise. So I get those built. I do also, Larry has talked with Heritage Trust a little bit, the back group, the byways. I know a few signs that he dropped off. One sign, one kiosk, one sign, also ready to be installed. Very well, so you should start to see.
What was the location for the kiosk?
I know,
You don't want to give a date.
I don't want to give a date. He's bit me so far. The kiosk, the large kiosk that I brought up is going back down at the, in Madrid at the, they tear down there.
Poacher's Paradise.
Poacher's Paradise, where the
Oh.
train is. Now we're getting the small placard uprights for the R hookup. And then R7, obviously, that we have built will have the in-town locations.
Any questions on wayfinding signs? Okay. Attainable housing.
Well, good news on Attainable Housing. It's a contract, past legal review, so contract will be signed for the cross street property. With Matthew Terra, the Haley, John Wasilewski to do a project. There's a 6-month option, how that will work. They want to have a neighborhood meeting, make another appearance, the RREOC, and then work with the town and department heads to then have a meeting scheduled select board to move this project forward. They'll be doing their due diligence, looking at all the zoning, permit, all of those things to get that all worked out over the 6-month period. And then things, well, I should say, when things go well, 2022, I think you'll see the first of a really nice attainable housing project, mostly rentals. So this is going to address a real critical need. So I'm really happy about that. And we're trying to come up with a housing matrix, which I need to do for the town anyway, which is a funding matrix, again, just update where the different sources of fundings are, whether it's grants or loans or all of those things combined to make this project fly. And they want to do it right with the public outreach. They're sensitive to the neighborhood. We've walked the property a few times now, and they, of course, right next to you, Keith. And I think this is going to be a good project. It won't directly conflict with the other housing projects that are percolating with Laura, others in the community. So that's the latest update there.
So I'm sorry.
What do you mean by mostly rentals?
It'll be probably a mixed use at this point, which will be rental housing between market and attainable rates. We had a lot of survey work. They'll be doing a housing survey will be done in the next 30 days too, which will, a lot of it, outreach was done to get what are affordable, without using the word affordable in the documents, but what are the rates that we feel people could afford for 1- and 2-bedroom apartments, and it's workforce housing as well. And so what they're looking at is primary is going to be rental housing. They may have some ownership housing to make it slightly mixed use so that the project can be doable. That's always the rub. That's why attainable workforce housing hasn't been done that successfully, because there's always a gap. Sometimes developers got to do high profile stuff for the people that really can afford a lot, or they end up doing that affordable housing, which is the lower end of the spectrum. So what they're trying to do is come up with this median range that is affordable, but it's attainable housing without that affordable label per se. And this could be a great pilot project for others statewide. So I think we'll have some state buy-in on this as well. So I'm excited about this. I think this is addressing a real critical need, and these guys have stepped up to tackle it.
So they're gonna start building next year, or is it gonna be completed?
We're hoping that
Like
they
for the
will,
summer season next year?
yeah, a lot depends on the next 3-4 months with the permitting and the due diligence on the zoning, the density and how many units can go on there, especially Rangeley's famous or infamous for different zoning issues, so sort of work that through and say, okay, can we do 25 units, 20 units, or 35, but somewhere in that range. And they'll be tastefully done. One of the things I know this person's track record, they've not done shoddy projects, they've done really well landscaped, nicely done, sensitive projects all around the state. I think that is a good situation for the community here. And we'll keep our fingers crossed that if things go well, they hope to break ground and maybe complete it by next fall
Next.
of 22.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I understand you said you don't want to use the word affordable, but is it gonna meet the state requirements for affordable housing?
It'll meet, there's a asterisk after affordable. There's low income affordable and there's moderate income, and the state lots of times use what they call the LMI benefit. Block grants do that as well, low to moderate income. So it'll have maybe a certain percentage that can meet the low portion, but most of it's gonna be geared to moderate income. And so I don't know if that fully answers your question.
No, it does.
And a lot of that is plugged into what funding sources are available at which level. So what makes this trickier to do is if you go all into the low type, then you get what you get with that. So trying to split the difference, this is where it's a case of there has to be some unique subsidy that comes from somewhere. Hopefully a patient developer then says, yeah, I like return on my investment, but I can live with a reasonable return as opposed to a maximum return. And then also just sort of balance that all out. And so we'll say it's a $3 million project, which it very much probably will be. Don't quote, for sure, it could be more, it could be slightly less. So we'll say 3 million. And so they're doing all their financing, but maybe there's a gap of 20-25% that will make the project more doable. Otherwise, it stretches them. And some developers, that's why it's not been done. They back away because they can't afford to do it. So, but I believe in the integrity of this project. I think it's going to be a good one.
Is that, so you said 20 to 35 units, is that the hope,
That's-
or is that what they're thinking?
Well, that's what they've been talking about. Originally, anything, when you run a business and you have price points and say, are you gonna sell pizzas, then you know what you have to break even, your break even threshold. And the same thing with housing. You're looking at what do we need to do to make this happen based on density. So if the zoning permits 20, but in order to make this project fly so that there's even a patient return down the road for the people taking the risk of doing the development, do they need 30? So when you look at, then you go back to the zoning and you say, all right, how do we do this so that the site model, of course, in my brain, I already see the concept drawings with colorized pencils on the easels of how this can look.
I'm just trying to envision how
Yeah.
35 units would fit on our street.
Well,
That's all.
yeah, well, there's 2 or 3 different ideas being bandied about right now. One of them is sort of the lodge setting type of thing. Nothing like a youth hostel, no, really nicely done 1 and 2 bedroom apartments with some accessory buildings that could be maybe a handful of duplexes that go. They're playing, that's what this 6-month period is going to be, the due diligence piece to try to say, how do we get this Rubik's Cube to match up within the scope, but still respects the neighbors and everything's well with green space. And the good news is with all the greenery that's there, they feel that they can get this done. It's just a question of interpretation now. Will the zoning and will the footprint allow for 20 or 35? That's the range they're looking at. They're not going to overkill it and try to come in way too strong, with an overcrowded bus with too many people on board. They're going to make this work.
So I would, because I was a week ahead of schedule. I talked this out to Joe last weekend.
Me too.
So on attainable housing, there's obviously, that's moved up to being a huge need. I mean, And it was, so I think we need to kind of reorganize this in our brains about what's going on here, because we have workforce housing, we've got attainable housing, we've got projects going on.
Yeah.
But we kind of need to start in the beginning and go back to what's available, what is the actual need, you know, like,
Yeah.
is 100 units the need, or is it 50 units? Or when we get Saddleback in the mix, does that reduce the need? And, you know, so
Yeah,
I think there's questions that, we were gonna do an inventory, you know, 5 years ago, right, about what's
Yeah.
available. I think that
well,
none of that would have completely changed anyways, but, I think it's time to kind of put our hands around this thing and kind
yeah,
of.
I can answer that. That's what's happening right now. They're doing a full attainable workforce housing marketing analysis with all of the data. That's in process right now. So
And they're
that-
gonna give it to the town of Rangeley?
I believe so, yes. And that will be done, that's done through Moines Associates, and I've worked with them a lot in the past. They do all kinds of marketing studies. They've helped me with some of our downtown plans and other things. So that's what they've been doing, a lot of interviews and survey work. And, you know, I think you might have filled out one of the surveys. I think Laura did too. And so we've got a lot of different surveys, and then the actual interviews with people, from the realtors to businesses and IGA and some of the larger employers in town, the Virginia Inanimate Fund and others. So they're taking all that information, and they should have this all done by Labor Day. So that'd be very helpful to answer some of the questions. Because one of the things that Wozleski, the developer of Manson Terrace, what really is the need? We hear the little buzz around the community, but what is the need? And what are the price points on this? Do we need 100 units? Do we need 50 units, 200 units? And that's what they're fleshing out right now. And I think one of the things with Saddleback's looking at their own little housing project. It's more of almost like a youth hostel type of thing. They have a different approach. And then Carabasset is doing another one with, is it Peck? I think his name's Paul Peck. So part of the Greater Rangeley housing piece, we're doing this marketing analysis, what's really going on Rangeley region, you know, Rangeley itself. And one of the things, I think there'll probably be a little handshake agreement that maybe 25 or 30% of the buildable units for attainable rental workforce housing, maybe 30% of those are rented by Saddleback folks. And what the hope is year-round housing. This is not like short-term. The short-term is being addressed too. But what's good about year-round is if Saddleback employees are working X number of months at Saddleback, and then they're working at Gingerbread House or working in other places, so that we get rid of some of the seasonality variance, and we have more of at least maybe 10 out of the 12 months they're into the workforce here.
Yeah, we need it, but there's things like you've said zoning about 10 times, and anybody who's done any work in Rangeley knows that zoning is always, you know, a challenge. And one of the whole points of us existing was to match the idea of the comp plan to the zoning plan. And that's a dual thing, right? Because there's things that don't match up, and some things that are in the comp plan but not in the zoning, and vice versa. I know over the years they've been working on it, but if we're now switching our focus and saying we need more of this type of housing, it might not be in compliance with the comp plan. So we just need to make sure that whatever work, we don't need to do the work, trust me, that's great. They can all do the work, but we know what that is, because nothing is fast, right? To change the zoning ordinances, that's not a 1 month period of time where,
We've gone through this in other communities that work, zoning is always one of those issues, it never goes away. But one of the things that they did first off, they've already looked at the comp plan, they've looked at the downtown revitalization plan and the action plan. So all that stuff seems to match up. It's just a question of there are some gray areas. And a lot of this was one of the instructional things in the downtown revitalization action plan too, was Rangeley needs to make some zoning adjustments. And infill housing is a top priority, making downtown Rangeley and Quonset walkable. So it really does tick all the boxes.
I also would argue that we need to look at the broader picture, where we need to look at attainable housing where people don't want to live in downtown,
Oh,
where they're gonna live, but so that's where the plantations and the other areas where there's more free space and builders.
well, that's being looked at too, though, because they have also looked at Dallas and River Plantations. the
Great.
potential
Get them
project
in here.
Out-
Let's talk to 'em.
out at Dallas Road, for example.
So by they, do you mean Des
Come on, but there are others that are looking at this. But this
Yeah.
is the very first one. This one, when it's done right, is actually gonna be really good for the town. I really think it's gonna be a great fit. And it doesn't prohibit other projects that match up under the comp plan and the downtown plan. And even the areas outside of downtown, as you mentioned, there's a certain centralization of some of the housing will be in your downtown area, but obviously, when you look at sprawl, when you look at people that are out and about, there's room for that too, townwide. So that's, I think, the best of both worlds.
Well, quick question, I have different thoughts for the meeting that actually, as a homeowner, that abuts potential plan for the cross street, College lot. A quick question in this conversation, I guess, what stops, let's say a 25 unit complex, what stops that from being sold out individually down the road? Because that's a big difference in development, in my opinion, how it's set up, because honestly, as we know, as we close the Rangeley, right now we're high. Rangeley's bound to come back down again. Yeah, so what happens year 12 when these buildings, we have no need for extra tenants, and these buildings are sitting vacant, we want to get underneath this thing and say, I want to sell this duplex, I want to sell this unit over here. What happens then?
I think that's a good point. I think covenants could be put in place, and that's part of the discussion when they do the outreach. That's a perfect question to ask to the development group, like what happens then? And somebody out of their back pocket say, well, I really have a group basis to have here,
Well, the
Yeah.
other question would be, if it's mixed ownership and rental, I mean, I could see people buying them and then renting them.
For
Right.
large amounts of money that
Right.
nobody that lives in Rangeley.
Exactly.
Or, I was thinking more maybe employers would buy them
Exactly what's gonna happen.
and rent for their employees, but they would still be rental.
Yeah.
Which has,
That's exactly what's gonna happen.
That's part of my thought.
They're gonna sell.
What John just said, part of that is I know we're talking this weekend to somebody about rental opportunities, and I'm not really to get into it right now, but there are people paying upwards of $3,000 a month right now for a house or a place to stay, which if you can afford it, it's good for you, or if you're able to rent a place out, make that kind of money, it's good for you, but I'm worried about the difference there, where you're gonna have, that snowmobile company comes up the weekend, it comes from my backyard. Different conversation, but it's a whole different dynamic, how this workforce or affordable housing comes into play. It's no longer the intensity, it becomes, how can I make more money?
Yeah, internally, I've talked with them about that, and it's actually the opposite. They want to make this work as the real advisable, affordable way. They don't want to have this other thing going on at all.
Okay.
But these concerns are the perfect things, when we get the developers here, this is exactly what would be good to come out and get addressed at. But I think 2 thumbs up at this point until they prove it's different.
What's the current zoning of that lot now? Why aren't they looking to build on the current zoning instead of?
Well, they still might be done. Actually, they met with the zoning officials here with Bailey.
It's village, I think residential.
Yeah, it's built,
So
yeah.
how many units can you build on that?
there's lots of setback, or once
Yeah.
you go from downtown commercial to commercial.
Right, that's why I said a range. It depends on the layout, and they don't want to be too tall in the height requirements. Everything's going to conform to the code, but then there's a little wiggle room. So that's what's going to be determined over the next few months to get that clarified.
It's predominantly residential, that's the first portion is village.
Yeah.
Probably the access road in.
Yeah, the access road in, right.
Village, the rest would be residential.
2 questions. Daryl, how soon do you think Des Moines will make their results available to us?
I would say within 30 days, at least by next month.
Second question, and it's hard to know without seeing that, do we think that's adequate information for us to move forward?
Yeah, I do.
But are you comfortable with that? Or should we solicit some other type of survey, or do we want to think about that?
I think we'd have to see what the
Okay,
information.
see what, kind of wait and see what it looks like.
My 2 cents on that one, I think it's worth a solicitation for a secondary, because you're looking at a group that has interest right now.
No, I got you.
I know you know, but nothing can be swayed one or the other, but I think it's nice to have a second number that allows you to be like, okay, if one says you need 100 units, the secondary unit says you one or the other, it's 50 or it could be 200. So I mean, it gives the ability to bounce off somebody else. My opinion.
I think the good median point on that, or middle ground, is that they have what I call a safe range. In other words, you don't want it to be tumbleweed, if you only have 2 units there, you don't want 200 units in there, so is that range 20? I just threw out 20 to 35.
I would suggest that we never want 200 units.
No, I just made a little procedure there. But this is the kind of feedback they've been getting in the surveys. And this is also the feedback that they want to have when they open up the public meetings and have the neighborhood meetings and meet with us again, all the department heads, then have a meeting with the selectmen. Going through the town manager first to get that scheduled. And that's what they want to do. They don't want to come into here's this outside New Jersey, Massachusetts developer is going to come in and just, no, that's the opposite of what they want to do. They want to do this right because it needs to be done right to pass the straight face test, but more importantly, to address the needs of the town so that it builds that need.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the only thing I think that could be a concern with what kind of workforce housing in a village residential is children.
Yeah.
You know, but that's,
Well, they
I
talk
think
about
that would be,
But
you
that's
know,
where safe routes to
rules
school and
and-
sidewalks and walkability actually is a good situation.
yeah.
Yeah.
Laura, do you have any thoughts?
Hi, Laura.
No, I think that, yeah, I think we'll tell a lot by what their survey results and where their things, where that is pointing to.
All right, so why don't we, when we get that survey, I agree with Keith that we need to look at it in a broader context, not just one aspect of it. And I know they're looking at other aspects. I'm not saying that, I'm just saying one firm. And then just make sure that we, regroup a little, look at the comp plan, make sure we're fitting into what we want, because there is with the growth of Rangeley this last year, right? People are getting nervous, which I don't blame them, because it's like the influx of people. Now, I don't think the influx of people would be so hard on the business community if they had the employee community to handle it. They would be thrilled and everything would be much smoother and all that stuff. So this is a good component.
Yep.
But there is a character, we don't want to be too big too, right? It's like,
You're 100% right. I think if you look at, the town has to develop at the same time these buildings come into place, because you look at public utilities right now, we're already, so this happens, let's say this unit plus others piggyback each other the next year or two. We don't have broadband in effect. If our transfer station can't handle much more volume based on current setup, wastewater obviously is still good right now, but could be, comes to a point. So our utilities have to be able to grow at the same time. So as you said, we have to be able to step this.
I know that was a concern for Larry and Aquasic too, when
Right.
we sold the gallery, became a hotel, water, it was
Oh,
for
yeah, that's key.
water, because that's a well, private, whatever.
Right.
It has some, so I guess we're all in agreement, we should be focusing on this. We're gonna take a look at the survey, and we'll go from there.
And
We'll
it
start,
makes sense, Kate, is when the survey is done, then we'll schedule them to share the survey with the committee here
yes,
first.
That would be
makes
great.
the logical step.
okay.
That's great feedback, by the way.
TIF update.
Joey, you want that one?
Yeah, I'm happy to do this. So with TIF, the select board, I'm gonna paraphrase this, the select board met with the assessor and tax collector for, I think the last meeting. Actually, it was the meeting before last. Anyway, they committed taxes. In the calculation, they did not formally include the TIF numbers. The assessor, our assessing agent, and the assessor were not comfortable because the TIF approval document had not been received, still has not been received by the town. I'll get into that in a minute. They recommended to the board that they commit taxes without TIF calculated in. The board did that. The mill rate was set. It's gone up some. Primarily, that's due to the school and the road bond, and then county tax was up about 24,000. So that's what happened with tax commitment. In the meantime, actually before that, there was some back and forth with the DCD, Daryl and I, and we worked on this for several days. In the meantime, we have a draft approval letter from DCD that's come in since the taxes were committed. Draft approvals come in. There are a couple of things that our attorney's working on. They seem fairly minor. What the next step is, and what I am trying to set up is a meeting with our attorney and our assessor, Daryl, Rebecca, and myself, to gauge the comfort level of our assessor, basically to allow us to start capturing value. This is it in a nutshell. I don't want to get too far down the road, but essentially there are a couple of paths forward. One is we can wait until next July 1 to begin capturing value. The other one is if the assessor is comfortable with it, we can begin capturing it on the date of the approval letter, which is still in draft form. So that's the next step, is we're going to be meeting with hopefully the assessor, our TIF attorney, and then make a recommendation to the board to begin capturing that value.
Let me clarify, we could still capture all the way back.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you just
Right.
gave me
Yes.
my
we did
heart
do it.
just sank, 'cause like, why didn't
Well,
we
you
do
don't
all of
capture
this?
all the way back. The original assessed value is March 31.
Yeah, and that's in the draft letter from the state.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
And
Oh,
what-
can you approve the meeting minutes? No, forget it. She doesn't have them anyways. Go, we'll do it next time.
We could we?
No, well, we can now that Laura's on, but, all right, so you know, Daryl knows because Laura and I every year kept saying, we need to capture all the improvements that have been happening, and we were guaranteed that we did.
And you did, and that's.
And we
reflected
did.
In the draft letter, that's correct. It's just a question of,
So we are pretending like we didn't because we don't have an official letter from the state of Maine?
Essentially, so there are a couple of things in the statute. The assessor is being very strict with Maine Revenue Service's interpretation of this, which he has every right to do, which he did. Now, DECD has a kind of a different set of statutes that is almost conflicting.
Yeah.
And this is commonly known, and it really has to do with the comfort level of the assessor, and the assessor did what he was comfortable with. Frankly, I was comfortable with the decision he made.
But if he
Because
was
we didn't have-
comfortable with it before, oh, because you didn't have the
Because we didn't
signed
have the
piece.
approval letter,
Okay.
which we still don't have, but we're working on. So Rebecca's right, the original assessed value is March 31. You capture that, but you can't begin collecting it essentially until the approval letter.
and the approval letter, if it's the will, the commitment can be amended to reflect that. And we did that in Richmond. So it can be done. It's just, and I get it, it's scary for some, you don't want to sign, all I can think of is Lucy holding football and Charlie Brown's, oh, you're gonna notarize it? You're gonna really leave that ball there? And then she pulls it away, so you don't want to, So to be continued, but the good news is it's all captured and it's reflected in the state draft letter. So it's just a question of where we go from here after we have this group meeting to hash that out.
My 2 cents would be go to the date of the letter, not wait till July of next year.
I don't disagree with you. It's
Yeah, that's
really
me.
a decision
That's just-
of the
just don't-
assessor.
Yeah, and I was, and Joe knows this, I was mostly frustrated at this whole issue because what happened, the biggest delay with the letter is they have 2 outside agencies that review, MDOT and DACF. And they have 30 days to review. They did not respond in those 30 days. So by rights, the state should have said, okay, we checked the box, no comments, and they could have had that letter before the commitment was made July 19th at the select board. But what happened is they gave them 60 days and they finally got these comments in. And that was the primary cause for the delay in my heartburn as well, because it didn't need to happen, but that's water under the bridge now. We got a good project on with the TIF. Now it's just a question of when do we ink it?
Okay. New business. So I asked Joe to put parking back on. And it could be me, but I don't think it's just me, because now I have time where I spend driving through Rangeley. But parking is full a lot of times. Now, I think it's doing, what I've noticed, and again, this is just my opinion, is town has done a really great job, I think, of spreading out. So we're from the Rangeley Inn down to, the shed. Seems like it's pretty well, loaded, but it's spread out on both sides. I mean, sometimes we used to see it just huddled right around the Red Onion in the middle section there, and now it seems like it's stretched out. I do notice people parking in the parking area on Depot Street. I haven't paid much attention to the one on Pleasant Street, but and I have seen the Chambertown one. Usually seems like it's pretty full. So we're looking like we're at capacity on parking again in the town. Now, I was saying to Joe, in my experience working here and being here, the busiest crux on the town is the end of July, early August. Those 2 weeks are our busiest times of year, on a day-to-day basis. So this would be the worst scenario usually, but I noticed in June, July, it's not really slowing down. The good news about that is people aren't parking at the post office, hopping in their car and then driving over to someplace else. They're actually walking down the street, which is the whole point of spreading out the parking, so that's a good thing, I think. Now, the person walking might not love it, but
It's healthy.
so I'm not sure if we have a huge parking problem, a little parking problem, if it's gonna be a bigger parking problem, if we get people to use Pleasant Street more, maybe more, same thing with signage. We're gonna be still getting some more signs on that. I just wanted to throw it back out there because I know we did an exhaustive study of what land was available for parking, which no longer exists. None of them does, but the Depot Street we did buy, which is good. So that, at least that one's firm. The IGA parking is no longer parking. So the winter, that one's gonna be utilized more. And then Pleasant Street is an underutilized spot. We all know that. Just thought I'd throw it out there that we should maybe take a look at it again or not. What do you think, Laura?
Well, I don't have the anecdotal experience this summer, so I haven't been down in Rangeley, but yeah, I don't know.
How about even Aquasic? I mean, parking is certainly an issue in Aquasic. If you were open at lunch, Laura, right? If you had employees and you were open, I mean, the half of Aquasic Grocery parks at your place, right? So parking is, I don't know. I'm not quite sure what we do.
So again, my observation of being in town this year, obviously, I think we capitalize on a few things. Obviously, knowing we have plans for Depot Street, once that gets addressed, I think you'll have a little formal parking. It'll look more appealing, one, and then two will be a little more defined. And then Pleasant Street, I will say in its defense, underutilized absolutely. But in the last couple of weeks, there have been multiple boats, trailers there, trailers. Yesterday there was actually over half a dozen utilized there. Obviously, the park has been loaded. People are utilizing the spots are being as they're laid out, but park is definitely loaded. So the overflow for boat parking is happening as it needs to. In my opinion, obviously Main Street, we're going to lose a few more parking spots as we move forward to meet MUTD requirements on crosswalks with 120-foot buffers, so right now there's still 3 or 4 parking spots that are existing that need to come out altogether.
Oh.
So, it adds to the problem more than helps, but in order us to have safer crossing zones,
Yeah.
and be a little more walker friendly, I think it's definitely necessary. As for additional parking, I don't have an answer to that one.
Is there any ways that Pleasant Street where boat trailers and they back in and then make specific spots?
We definitely could go that approach.
That's a good.
So it's not sloppy parking, because I've seen sloppy parking.
What I don't want to, one thing about that parking lot, we have to be careful in that parking lot, and how we develop it, based on enforcement that runs through there. And I think how much we develop, I'm just saying we have to come back out in future repair work.
Oh, yeah.
So you can't over build that one on expansion and or access to utilities would be very important in that parking area. But you could definitely, in its current state, you could pave it at a future minor expense, and obviously dig that out if you had to, it would be minor compared to plantings and all that stuff. But there's definitely room for improvement there. And I think again, part of your thing again is looking at what we have current, understanding how to design it and advertising for it. Help keep people away, but as for me, I'm gonna look for convenience for parking. So how close can I get to where I am when I need to run the park at Pleasant Street? For me, obviously living here in town, I walk everywhere.
Yeah.
That's the difference mentality, I guess, that someone coming here for a day trip or something. Maybe they don't, yeah, maybe they will, maybe they won't. It's a mix. I mean, some people love to walk, some people don't. Yeah. And like I said, I don't have much development. In local Rangeley, aside from projects I know are coming up that may assist with some parking issues.
Okay.
For us to find something though to develop is probably very minimal chance, but private people that are doing some work may assist with other parts of town.
Do you think we ought to revisit behind the restaurant again?
I don't think I want to approach that one again.
No,
I think based
I
on.
mean, that was they were
based
so
on
clear.
conversation, and I think the more I get a look at the park and how I want to utilize that in the future, I think I'd rather leave that.
Leave it alone.
I mean, no disrespect to business in town or anything like that, but I think it serves a better purpose
Yeah. No,
and a community.
yeah. That was the last consensus last time around too. Okay.
We probably should put signs up. When I was there Saturday, there were cars parked wherever they wanted to park at the park.
Yeah, so part of, that's
In the grass.
that's a.
Well, that was Sandy's thing too. Sandy Miller's service was Saturday in his backyard.
Oh,
Oh, that might have been. what it
That,
was.
yeah. Okay.
Also, sorry, switch on parking.
Yeah.
This is also the same place where I can bring up the permitted parking. Yeah. Okay, so for the last few years, a couple of years at least, I respectfully get 3 to 4 requests of individuals that rent up here. This has been the newest one. People that rent up here, and there's new requirements at their rental opportunities that they can't park multiple vehicles or snowmobile trailers. So what I do is I take down the license plate number when they get here and their truck model and talk to the police department and allow them to park Depot Street generally. Right now, nothing prevents us in code necessarily, but we don't have any overnight parking anywhere. What brought this up more recently was Morton First approached me, and they have a bigger issue too. Same idea. Large houses, there's always much room. So I talked to Joe about it, and I think I would like to approach it as whether it's through the rental agencies or the town has X. We have so many placards printed out that aren't just paper. They're hologram or something that allows it to be actually not necessarily manipulated or copied. But I think there's a need for, again, not that we can completely fill up Depot Street, but I think the back 40 of Depot for some, for trailer parking could be.
I have a question for you on that. if we allowed for permanent parking, there, would that then eliminate the ability for the people who are doing the day? Would that hurt the day?
No, so this would be, so my intentions, I guess my initial intention would be, this would be only like short term, like, I'm gonna say.
3 days.
3 days.
Okay.
3-day parking, and again, it would be the back 40. So knowing that the trail comes through there already for snowmobile loading and unloading, then I would say, Tally only has 6 permits for depot total. We're willing to allow 6, but this is a number, not necessarily what we would do. Say there's 6 spaces that we would allow short-term parking, other than day parking. Again, it's just a number, not necessarily not an approach, but I just think there's a need in certain cases, not camping, but having that 18-wheeler that needs to come park somewhere, having the snowmobile trail that, trying to help with local business, trying to get those big people up here. You can only fit 2 trucks and trailer at your house. You're renting, park a trailer over here.
I definitely think there's a need, so.
Yeah.
I used to let people park at I would let people and then they would do it anyways, but, the gingerbread parking lot.
There is a need, but Kate's right, does that displace people that are, foot traffic? The people that are gonna visit the businesses, and then the question becomes, in my mind, how do we facilitate the permits? And is there a fee for the permit? Does the town
I'm
charge?
saying,
I would say you should charge a fee.
So,
I did.
if you
I
go-
charged $100 for Stony Batter because they kept parking in my thing without permission, and I started charging them $100. It's like,
I think it's a revenue.
you know,
I think it's a revenue builder, and I think it helps the ability to help either put money back towards the maintenance of those facilities.
Yeah.
Or whatever, it helps.
and I'm not saying I'm saying like a $10 fee or $10 a night or whatever or something.
Can we use School Street for parking until something's decided on what's gonna be done with it?
Makes sense.
This one on the corner, yeah.
Again, I think it's, like I said, the same scenario, I think it's gonna be by permit, because right now you look at how it, other than the fire department, how it is utilized,
Oh, I agree with that.
right,
I agree with that.
yeah. But, it's just a space we're not using.
But Rebecca's point is good, because that's less likely to take away foot traffic.
Yeah.
It's up there.
So
Pleasant Street, same.
I would prefer Pleasant Street or School Street, something outside the skirts. And then obviously for me, also, I've talked to Joe, the same thing is Chick Hill. I have an area up there that I can definitely, we could make parking, and it's a turn surveillance, trail access right there.
Yeah,
So if
perfect.
we plot an area, it's
Oh,
another area, for at least for recreational vehicles.
Yeah.
Or, snowmobiles, not four-wheelers.
That's
Yeah.
a great idea.
That's a
Yeah,
great
I
idea.
like that.
Again, the ability for us to,
That was Keith's idea.
we talked about it before, but, so the other points that we can help draw that out, but I think even in the interest of other vehicles, you have to have some spots that maybe
You could
not
work,
very minimal.
so the only concern, the only thing I would see might have be a problem is getting the permit on a Saturday, like when you're closed, but I think if you worked with like the rental agencies, the public, and said, you're eligible for 3, I mean, she might just, like Beth might just get 3 permits for the winter, for,
Right, that's,
or,
that's our thought, if we could have,
or 5.
they wanted manual, they wanted 10 to 15 that they gave out, like.
Yes,
They have, town keeps 1 through 10, for a number, and the one refurbished keeps 10 through 25,
Mhm.
and whoever, we have 50 made, say, for a number of permits. We designate X per group, and then the police department knows, not that they have to have more work, but they know, okay, this vehicle is parked. If they see that placard, at least they know, okay, number 25 is actually a legitimate number for the town of Rangeley.
Yeah.
So however we do this, however it's
yeah.
brought up.
I talked to the snowmobile club too, just to make sure that, because I know they park in a Quasic. I mean, that's always a problem, right? So and not to have it be like they collect money. You don't want it to be, there's free for the snowmobile club and then charge for the,
I agree.
so, yeah, figure that out. Laura, any thoughts on the Quasic?
Oh, no, it's definitely a need everywhere, so I think you've got some good solutions. And I know it's a need for the rental agencies, because we've got some rental property, and it's always like, where are they gonna park their snowmobile trailer?
Mhm.
So we've had to knock some spots out.
Laura, aside from the bridge there in Wausau being not having a wide sidewalk, do you think it's too far to walk from the parking lot at the end of 16 to downtown Wausau? Do you think people would do it if they felt safe crossing the bridge?
I think more people would do it. Yeah, I don't think it's, I mean, I don't mind walking. I don't think it's that far. And I think, to be honest, I think day trippers are more used to walking when they go on a day trip.
I know my solution to that one, but people won't agree with it, so.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. But, so what I'm thinking right now, is it time to start planning, capital planning for paving these parking lots, laying out the striping, making them more appealing for people that are day
Yes.
trippers, and then possibly cordoning off, 10 or 15% of each lot for 2 or 3 day parking that we charge for.
And put signage up, permitted
Right.
parking only.
Right.
All of it would be code, so they have to have that placard.
Is it time to pave these things and develop them in a way that facilitates pedestrian parking? Because Wausau is probably one of our, I don't want to say worst, but it's an area that has a problem with parking as
Right.
much, if not more than anywhere else.
And if, accountability right now, if you look at, for town parking, obviously, we have 16, Route 4, 16, and then Kings Landing, so you have to figure out access to one of those if we're looking at current parking areas. I mean, for development, if Wausau downtown, Wausau's tight. So
Yeah,
there
there's,
is probably no place to add additional.
What's that lot beside, the marine, Quasi Marine? Is it swampy?
it's all
Is that what-
swamp.
Oh.
Yeah,
Wetland, actually.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know of any available spots. And then on the other side of 45th is all water too.
Right, that's one thing I was looking at in my mind, but you don't have enough room for anything that would make sense to have even a parking lot in there. You might gain half a dozen vehicles, but I'll be it's worth the price.
So these improvements, technical question.
The only one would be, and I would never ask this person because this person and I have a hard time together, but the people who bought the little camp, Laura, behind Stony Batter on Shore Road,
Yep.
own from their little camp to the peninsula thing. They have a lot there that's not marsh. The snowmobile trail used to go, and I think they maybe gave a hard time, I'm not sure, but yeah, they probably did. I take it back, they never approved that. Yeah, so,
So
all right.
can we use TIP funds to develop these parking lots?
Yes.
So,
Infrastructure, soccer.
Any input? Any other input?
So I have a question. Based on, obviously, we're not gonna get parking lots based on budgets I know, numbers I know of right now. Odds of us improving the infrastructure, but in parking lots right now is little to none. But I think permitted parking is a need for this winter. So I think we can come to a consensus in the next meeting or something on a rough number of designated spots and how we set it up. Would be nice.
I think we can
Is that
agree
correct?
now. Can we agree now?
On the amount of spots?
Oh, well, no,
And how
maybe
to
not.
set up, you have to have a plan on how, if it's not paved and striped, how do people know where?
Yeah.
So I got throw Chick Hill out right now. If I put up an area at Chick Hill, away from the airport, but next to the trail, and I have, it's available parking. I don't care up there because it's not taking away from anything else additionally in town. For me, as long as it has surveillance there and it's an area that I can keep open relatively easy, then if I get 3, 4, 5 trucks and they park how they do, most of those guys park tight enough so they want to get in and out, and they're pretty, in my opinion, observation of some snowmobilers, they're pretty good about each other's space, but still conscious of more people seem to be in there. So I think for me, if I talking to Joe and the Chick Hill's an option, we can move that over. That doesn't matter what the number is up there. But I think anywhere else in town, we want to look at, Pleasant Street or School Street.
Do you want to have a proposal brought back to your next meeting, a written proposal for parking?
Yeah,
Because then we'll hash it out, and then if we like,
I'd be happy to
then it'll go to the
help
board,
too.
or obviously, it's final destination.
I think just what fits, right? And then just, firm out the ideas, but I would definitely charge.
Yeah, we'll have to look at code and relook
There-
at those.
okay, so we're past time. The only thing though that I saw a post about dog parking. I had no thought about it other than, you gotta be kidding. But, no, I was like, not, I don't think it's anything that we need to really focus on right now, because
So I'll speak.
I'm not sure what we can do about
Joe and
that.
I did talk this morning. I read the same exact post, the lengthy post of discussion back and forth with a few individuals. We are in the works of some outside corrective action or beginning of the need. We're actually meeting with the state this Thursday to discuss some opportunities and reconfiguration of the beach and docks, et cetera. And that's much I want to say to that right now.
Yeah,
Okay, so you think you might have the ability to increase some dock spaces?
yeah, well, if we didn't put it in the budget, we definitely had talked about, I think there's some money in there for a couple extra sections somewhere. If there isn't, we definitely talked.
Is this Rangeley and Classic both, or?
So under the current budget, if money's in there for an additional slip or two, it would be just for Rangeley strictly right
Just
now.
for Rangeley.
We're working on Aquatic in a whole different dynamic of actual boat traffic and we'll say dredging and everything, so.
I would also, yeah, the only thing about Aquasic was not that we don't want more boats coming in, but it is tight getting, there's starting to be a lot of activity with a full Aquasic Cove Marina.
So for
And
us,
then Jerry has some docks and then the thing, so it just gets a little congested.
Yeah.
In that specific
But we're
spot.
gonna review it with Jamie, she's the environmentalist from DEP, so we're gonna look at that. And then we'll look at capacity too, that's one of the things that, I'm gonna give Daryl a tour of today, so we can,
Looking forward to that.
yeah, we can look at that stuff. But this fits into the capital plan, Rebecca is setting up appointments to meet with all of us, all the departments for laying out our capital plans, and these are things that we're gonna talk about.
I think you should let them do the fundraiser like they mentioned.
I'm all about it.
Ooh,
Somebody in there.
oh, the
that's-
post.
Yeah,
Oh, that's.
can we do a fundraiser?
Sure. Okay, so you're on top of it. Good job.
A lot going on, oh my.
There is a lot going on.
So we were not going to do a 2-week meeting, right? We were gonna skip the rest of August. So we're gonna do something in September. And I have,
Not the seventh, if I can put in a request, Kate, if we could do alternate Mondays to the board meetings, select board meetings, that would be much easier.
the 13th is a board meeting,
No, the seventh, I believe is.
well, that's Tuesday,
Yeah,
but we're on Mondays.
Monday's a Labor Day.
Monday's a holiday.
Right, so can we do the 13th of September?
Works for me.
The only thing about you, how about parking? Do we need to make any, does that,
I think we'll be okay.
I think
Okay.
we'll be okay. We're, like you said earlier, we're on the hump, we're literally on the hump right now, the busiest time. of year.
then if, I'm gonna meet with Keith on this banner thing here, like in a week sometime, right? Is that okay? So that might go back and forth through alternate communications to get that going. Is that okay?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
That's-
works for me. I think they're great, I think they look great, and I appreciate the effort. of getting-
Yeah.
I mean, we're on a path. I mean,
Wasn't my intention by any means.
no, I mean, we have changed the banner, we did pick banners and then different, but we gotta work out the kinks and then get some of the local, I think the local artists would be a nice idea.
Yeah, so again, it wasn't my intention ever to go against the group and have different thoughts. I think knowing Rangeley is unique, and I think moving forward with that, and I love the talent that is here. I think utilizing those images that actually capture Rangeley versus a catalog.
Yeah,
For me,
Yeah.
Yeah.
a lot more.
like I'm not so thrilled, right, no, like the firework one was cool, but now it's like, whatever.
I mean, yeah, I think those can be those ones that.
But that could go in the winter
Those-
for
well,
New
yeah,
Year's
those ones you
and
can-
Snowdio and,
Those
you
ones you
know,
can use during those events, so you can have event-specific ones. Like, part of my concern now with moving forward with Beth East flag is the Laker flags. There's no more room for flags, so they'll have to be banners. forward.
Right,
So that's gonna cost, it's gonna be.
booster, they're gonna go through the boosters, yeah.
But just understanding that, I still wanna be able to do those events and help, support those groups, but we have to look at it. What are we gonna do?
Did we cover what we're gonna do with the old Christmas decorations? We're not gonna talk about that today.
Well, I don't think, well, are we gonna have enough with lights and, so we're gonna have interspersed Christmas decorations? No, we're gonna
I
have
think
to.
everywhere there's a banner right now, there is no more Christmas hangers anymore.
But you have flag hangers, so you,
So the American flags under lit telephone poles are still what's there,
and they would be there in the winter too?
right?
Okay,
And then anything else right now currently is set up just based on what I needed for space. Anything else is taken down. And I was looking at
okay.
the adaptive measures for banners and lighting. And no, I'm saying we go that direction. What's the plan? So, again, I do have setups for those, so I.
We need lights then for the, we need to do some sort of lighting, because the thing that's the best about the Christmas decorations, is that it lights up the town in a dark, dreary time.
No, I'll look
You
at,
know?
I'll look at those, by all means. I'll look at ability to illuminate those banners, or if there's retro reflective ones or whatever else there may be, so.
That's it. So we're adjourning at 10:18. You're in favor, Laura? Or you sleep back there?
I'm in favor.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody. Well, I'm already thinking I'm gonna have to find a lot of different money, or a lot of different